start. My name is Jaron Cooper. I'm the president of the Murray City School District Board of Education.
And I'm Jennifer Covington, the superintendent.
I am April D. Spain, a concerned parent.
Greg Martin, a parent.
Cammy Anderson, a board member of the Murray City School District.
Yeah, Laurel Fetzer, a parent.
And Scott Bushnell here with the district assistant superintendent.
Okay, thank you. So with that, this meeting was really at your guys' request, if my understanding, and I'm paraphrasing, so if I misspeak exactly as to what that request is, let me know.
Okay, sorry, I have to run this over.
The request is that the parent council be recognized by the school district.
That was our original.
That was our original.
Thought and plan. We're kind of veering in a different direction with the parent council.
But what do you guys think about that?
I think with the changes of what has been made at your school board meeting last week, that changes how we kind of like think our support needs to be presented, right? So I think we have questions after reviewing the whole board meeting last week, just to make sure some of our concerns are like brought up to the table, and just things that we think that were a little bit not clear, or things that we think there could be certain like things swayed. We just want to make sure that we're all, understanding.
Yeah, and so what was your thought about the Parents' Rights Council?
We have no jurisdiction over you guys deciding if you want to organize a group on your own. But as far as it being probably part of the district and being recognized by the district, I think that lends itself to a lot of other challenges, because that would then cause us to have to recognize any other parent council.
So if we came under like the PTA, would that be something that would be better?
Right.
PTA and school community councils.
We have two parent councils that are actively functioning in the district, and that, going forward with our program, that's really, we want to make those more robust.
Sure.
And more engaged in the process.
That was one of my suggestions.
But otherwise, that's the challenge I think we see, is that it will open up a lot of other doors to other groups who may be in direct contrast to your parent council. And I don't know that it would accomplish anything.
It's like creating contention.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so like with the equity council forming, how do you guys, do teachers just form any councils that they want and you guys go along with it usually, or? Because from what I understand, like, there was no protocol in place for how they formed, but at the same time, at the Pride meeting, they were like, Darren Dean was just great to recognize this, and he said it was super easy, and I'm like, clearly a lot of teachers could start different councils then, so like, how do some get acknowledged and others, it's too much of a conflict of interest?
Jen, do you want to explain
Yes, so that one came about, we had a group of employees at one school who were feeling like they were not being recognized because of a photo. So I can tell you exactly how that was. It was, we had a teacher who wanted to have a picture of her and her wife, just like the teacher next door had a picture of her and her husband behind their desk. And the principal said, absolutely not, you can't do that. And so they felt like they wanted to know if there was policies or things that we needed to look at as far as employment-wise. So they kind of started together a small group. They came and then said, we'd like to put this together to really look at equity in the district. And so we said, okay, but you need to have a director over that. It can't just be an unfettered council who, they just pull together. So we did assign Darren Dean as Director of Human Resources over that, which then morphed into, like I said, when the whole, and I misspoke, it wasn't Trayvon Martin, it was George Floyd. Then they wanted to look at more of the issues surrounding racism and some of those things. So that's how and they were an employee group. Now, we will be doing that different moving forward.
So was there ever discussion about all the challenges that they might face by creating their own council, like you just mentioned to us?
Well, they're an employee, so they were gathering together as employees. So was there a discussion? No.
but they identified a specific issue that could have been problematic for the district with regard to policy and what was being enforced and how it's being enforced and are we being fair and equitable. So it was an opportunity for us to step back by having this group to kind of start to look at that and kind of see if we were actually, I think, aligned and appropriate with how we were enforcing that particular policy or not. And then it just kind of grew because they were already kind of somewhat organized with the events of last summer. It was kind of, okay, we already have some semblance of a structure. Let's build upon that structure a little bit more by inviting additional to look at some of these other issues that were very much in the public eye at that point in time. And so that's kind of how that evolved to that point. All within the district, all within those things of us trying to make sure we were looking at our students and our staff, and were we appropriately addressing any of those concerns or issues that might be related to equity, race, gender, etc.
So, did you consider their meetings to be open meetings?
I don't know that every council meeting is an open meeting.
No, yeah.
Because we have several different committees that function under the district. I mean,
Right, but if they're meeting and they're approved by the district, it should be an open meeting if they have any decision-making authority, right? So did they have decision-making authority?
I think they don't really have decision-making authority. I mean, they would usually come to us and present, and we would support or ask them to reconsider. I don't know that I recall that we gave them any decision-making authority.
So I guess that kind of leads to that memo number 3 that went out, that we thought that was from more of the equity committee rather than the district. But
Well,
They took credit for it.
well, they took credit for supporting us and helping us to figure out how to word it, I think is.
but ultimately, we as a board
approved it.
approved that.
Well, in the meeting,
I
in
didn't
the
even
board
think you
meeting,
approved it.
Did it
No,
come?
What'd you say?
we did approve the memo.
In the board meeting I watched, there was no vote or anything like that on the memo.
Yeah, there was a vote of support of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it did go through we did bring it to the,
Yeah.
They specifically, Darren Dean specifically said he didn't even need the board's approval for the memo, but they were presenting it to you for review.
Well, I can tell you that the third iteration was not necessarily the third iteration. And that we as a board
Had modified it
had
substantially
looked at it
before that point.
several times and made requests to change things slightly or different.
But not in a board meeting?
Was it in a study session? I don't know. Like,
I'm trying to remember either, because we've had a lot more study sessions over last fall.
but
compared
those
to-
are recorded too, right?
correct.
Yeah,
And if I may just get clarification, just to make sure I'm on the same page. So memorandum number 3 was sent out to employees. Was that the one that was directed internally to employees, right?
in November.
Yeah, all 3 of them were to
Were
employees.
to employees. And so not always do we have to have a vote of support from a board to send out a memo to employees. It was to try to clarify an internal issue that was regard to first memo and then a second memo that had been sent out to the employees.
Well,
Because-
okay, so it's an internal issue, but the third memo specifically says, now you are to center equity in your classrooms, discussions, dialogues, curriculum. So, to me, that's not internal, that's my student, my kids. That's their classrooms, that's their curriculum, that's my kids.
Sure.
So-
And let me clarify, the memo was, when I say internal, was messaged out internally.
Yeah.
You can certainly question, what that
What that
means
implies.
to your
Sure.
students and that kind of thing. And that's what we're all kind of here to discuss, right? Is what does that equity piece mean and what does it look like? But the intention of that memo, and the only reason I'm clarifying that or trying to get some clarification is we don't necessarily seek the board's approval to send out memos on things.
Sure.
So that's not necessarily a practice that we do. However, I think the point is well taken that when we have issues that arise like this, that are issues that we all have an opinion, we all have an interest in, that then we look at how do we best serve your student and every student in the district, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think that's where we want to come to is how do we best serve our students in a situation that we face, and this is a situation certainly that we face, but this is a situation I think that we're all wrestling in probably a broader spectrum across this country to many degrees. And so that's, again, I don't want to take away from the issue at hand. I just wanted to clarify that we don't always seek approval of a memo from a board. However, I do recognize and fully understand that this memo, just like many curricular memos, directly affect your students. And so that I hope is what we can discuss is how can we look at coming to some terms that will make sense for our district in working with curriculum and students and try to make some headway on this in terms of people feeling comfortable about where curriculum is and where we want to go, with it, and respect, what parents have to say, what teachers have to say, what students have to say, and let's see if there's something that we can do to try to make it better or the best we can for our students. So, anyways, sorry.
Well, that is good clarification, because I agree that, I've seen that their memos it's an employee thing, right? But there are also some things that also affect curriculum and parents, and so,
Sure.
I don't know, where do you guys?
Well, I don't know. I guess I feel like we've said this a lot, but the first memo stated the laws. You guys know the laws. Obviously, that's why the first memo was put out. The second memo added to that saying these are also covered under those laws, which you guys obviously agreed on. That's why that memo was put out. Then people in the schools, I don't know if it was just the equity committee, whoever or whatever, they said, oh, that harms us, that harms the community. So this third memo was put out to correct that. And my concern is, how do you correct something that harms the community that's the laws? I mean, if you feel like the laws harm you, then you need to go to the legislation and get the laws changed. It's not they don't have the ability to say, well, we don't like those laws, so we want to change it with this memo. And I feel that's what was done, because when Call Me Max was read in my child's classroom, they handed me this memo as their excuse. And I had to search the laws myself and found, oh, actually it breaks this law, and I'm going to pursue this if you don't fix it. And then they're like, oh, okay, yeah, actually that memo doesn't cover it. So based on my experience and based on reading the memos, I clearly feel that they think this memo overcame the laws that were stated in the first two memos. And that's my problem here is,
Yeah, how do you going forward build trust with them holding to those laws going forward? Like, how do we trust that this won't happen again if some other kid wants to bring in other religious or, other sexual or videos or something, right? And they're like, oh yeah, well they got away with that this time, so it's okay, anyone can do that, right? So.
right, and then I want to add too that I searched the laws myself. This was before I had even seen the first two memos. And I found the exact same law that you guys cited in your first memo. So I know that the administrators, and they knew that law. They'd all received this memo. So to me, this third memo is saying, don't worry about that law. Go ahead with what you want to teach. If you want to teach that, go ahead.
And I can sympathize with that, but, and to be honest, we wanted to verify if we felt that was fully accurate, or we have an issue with that. And we've taken that to 3 different legal councils, our private district council, the Utah State School Board Council, and the Attorney General's Office on Human and Civil Rights, and all have agreed that we did not violate law. Now, it was not good form, absolutely, and I think we agree to that. But they said, all of them said that what those memos and what actually happened did not violate law.
Okay, so my question is, did you go telling them the story that the teacher and the administrator brought the book in, or did you go with the story that the student brought the book in? Because y'all know the first 2 weeks you were told, this book's part of the curriculum, sexuality and gender are part of the curriculum, we're teaching it, here's our memo. Then 2 weeks later they changed it and said, oh, the student brought the book in, which I know legally, if the student brought the book in, then the student has more freedom of speech. So yeah, if you go to the Utah School Board and all these other sources with that second story, sure. What about with the first story?
Right, well, and you said there was some poor judgment and some communication. I think we've acknowledged that.
No, it's not. I'm sorry.
Not poor
It's
communication.
lying. I was lied to.
It's not poor communication. I'm so tired of hearing that.
I was lied to, and so were several other parents. I was told a certain story over and over again. And I can show you the emails. Greg has the emails printed out. You know, when the equity program was paused on January 13th, it was paused because Call Me Max was part of it. And then I see in the news, oh, it was never part of that book. That book was never part of the bundles. And everybody's like, why would they pause the whole program if that book wasn't part of it? You're telling me. That makes no sense. Because that's not what happened. And I was lied to.
I can't confirm or deny that. I don't know what was specifically said to you. But
Well, I can show you the emails. I sent them to Jen Covington.
I'm sure, and you know, I know that Jen has looked at that and has talked with them. And again, I think we recognize that there were some things that were not handled well on their part. Absolutely. And so, you know, from what we've been able to uncover is that the reality was that it was the child that brought the book to school. And that's been confirmed, I believe, with the
And who
parents.
brought Julian as a mermaid to school?
Yeah, I can give you the background on that, because I did check with that. So, the Julian as a Mermaid was also not one of the purchased books as part of their book bundle. Mrs. Paul, the teacher, borrowed it from a 4th grade teacher, Miss Averett. Miss Averett had read it to her class in the fall and shared with Dr. Job and Dr. Anderson how she felt that it let kids express things without limitations like gender norms. Dr. Job and Mrs. Anderson then invited Miss Averett to share the book and the classroom experience during their October faculty PD. It was not school created, there was not a school created or designed lesson plan for the book Julian and His Mermaid because it wasn't part of their book bundle list. The 4th grade teacher who had it originally read the book and discussed gender norms. The teacher gave the students to write on a piece of paper kind of what they thought they identified with. And then the teacher example was, I'm a girl, but I like to watch football. Mrs. Paul then borrowed the book in her to use in her classroom in January, and she created the assignment that I know you sent to me to go along with it.
So we're supposed to believe that teachers are receiving all of this training, like 3 hours of microaggression training and all this stuff in June. And then all of this additional professional development, including in October when they're presented with Julian as a mermaid. And we're supposed to believe that Julian as a mermaid and Call Me Max had nothing to do with each other.
And that training was at Horizon, so that was not district-wide training. So that faculty PD was at Horizon Elementary. And these are the facts that we have. So I can completely understand where you're coming from and
Julian as a mermaid was read 2 or 3 days before Call Me Max. So when a teacher is teaching this cross-dressing transgender ideology, And then somehow she just coincidentally, like this kid just happened to bring in this book 2 days later. Wow, that's some coincidence.
And also super coincidental that the January topic was an equity topic that applies to your class through bullying or whatever, and then they claimed that this child was bullied. Very coincidental, right?
And I don't know, I know very little about the child, but one of the things that I have to wonder, and again, I wonder if because Julian was a mermaid was read in the class, if that child then felt comfortable bringing that book in. I don't know, so. I have not talked to those parents.
But you don't think that the district created a culture where this was acceptable? By all of the trainings that they did without our knowledge. You know, and the memo that was issued that basically gives them full reign to bring whatever they want into class, but we're supposed to believe this was just an isolated mistake and this wasn't caused by a culture shift in the district.
I don't know, do you have any evidence that it's been at any other school? I mean, we have it at Horizon, and that we understand, we're dealing with that.
Yeah, I can't say what teachers, but I did hear that teachers at Macmillan had seen it in teacher trainings before, which
Have seen
have seen Call Me Max. And obviously we know Julian as a mermaid was in the school, you know, but still again, with Julian as a mermaid, I was told multiple times, all us parents were told multiple times, Julian as a mermaid is part of the list, the equity book bundles list. And now we're being told, oh, actually, just this other teacher brought it in. So both of those books, I was told explicitly by my child's teacher and 2 administrators. These are part of the book bundles program for your child's class. This topic is part of the book bundles program for your child's class. And now, then 2 weeks later, the story comes out that a student brought Call Me Max in, and now 6 weeks later, oh, actually, Julian as Mermaid was never on the list. That came from another teacher's room. That's really crazy, right? Like, it almost sounds like a lie to me, actually. It sounds deceitful. I'm told one thing, and then weeks later I'm told another, and then weeks later I'm told another thing. And the story just keeps changing. And none of this was addressed, I felt like, in that board meeting last week. It was just Miss Anderson saying, well, I was in a hurry to get my emails out, so it wasn't Miss Anderson who wrote the emails, it was Dr. Job. That wasn't even honest in and of itself. I mean...
Yeah, why wasn't Dr. Job telling us, why wasn't she helping with this sales pitch that was given to the whole district the other night?
We invited Principal Anderson as the principal, so.
Dr. Job's the one that put the book bundles together.
Ultimately, we invited one person, principal, to come and speak to us, because it's ultimately in her accountability for the school.
I think one thing that I can say from my perspective is that I don't feel like when I watched last week's meeting that Mrs. Anderson thought there was any issue with reading that book. Like, there was no apology. Like, she was very kind of proud that this child was thriving, which I'm glad there are children thriving in our schools. But I think that not worrying about breaking a law that talks about sexuality and gender things is concerning, right? So I don't know, I guess that is a trust issue there. You want to make sure that trust issue is solid. That this isn't just kind of easily avoided or, going around the bush or through the back door kind of a thing.
Yeah, Missy seemed to be extremely proud that it was read in the class to me. The great effect it had on this child. I mean, that's how I understood
Yeah, I mean,
what she was
they
saying.
don't talk about the effect it might have had on any other children, or... I mean, so one child has an issue, they bring in a book and all the children hear about that? I mean, so I made this argument from the beginning. If a child had an issue for being bullied for the majority religion, because I know equity is only minority, so the majority religion, can we bring in a book about that religion and read it to the whole class? And will the teacher just not look at it and just be like, oh, I'll just read that because this is a bullying issue? Is that gonna happen?
No, because we are changing policy. And we will educate our teachers on that policy.
How are you changing policy?
Have you looked at IN 304? And so that policy does say, so we've aligned it with state code. And we've also said that if the child brings a book in, it has to go through those steps. So a teacher can't just say, oh great, I'm going to read it. And in fact, we were talking today with our elementary principals. I don't know if you've ever done mystery readers. Have you done that at Horizon? Maybe not. Did you do that at Viewmont? Your wife may have done it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Mystery readers are where the parents will invite, or teachers will invite a parent to come in as the mystery reader, or I've been a mystery reader before, and they bring their favorite book.
Oh, I have actually done that.
So
Yes.
so we've even said that before a parent can bring a book in now, it's gonna have to be vetted through the teacher. We you know, it's unfortunate, but we wanna make sure that we're putting things in place so this doesn't happen again. So before a mystery, we'll still keep them a mystery, but they need to submit their book beforehand.
It'll be a mystery to the students, it just won't be a mystery to anybody else
Yeah.
before we read it, right?
So we did talk about that as well in that policy to make sure that it's going through all of those different, going through state code, but it has to be looked through.
So if it involves transgender or involves critical race theory, how are those decisions made pursuant to this new policy?
So that would then go through the principal, and the principal can convene a council with three members of the school community
I think
council,
3 members of
the
the
principal,
council.
and 2 teachers to look at that, so.
And then if
Okay,
they,
so that, I remember hearing all the different ones, but now I'm like, I
There was
didn't
a
keep it
lot.
up, because I'm like, there are now these and this and, okay.
Right. So,
Sorry.
so that's for any book that's read in the classroom, is that, or?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a lot of work.
Well,
okay.
and trust
We're
us,
looking
we
at
have
that
been
one.
grappling with this for weeks, trying to figure out how to do this, because elementary classrooms are full of literature. But what it is anything that's going to be read out loud to a class has to have, we're putting that onus on our teachers, that they have to make sure it goes through that code, and we've copied it straight from code into our policy. And if they have anything that doesn't feel like it's right, then they can go to their school council, school literature review, which you get 3 people from the community council, a teacher, a librarian, and the principal, to look at that and see if that would be appropriate for the classroom. The other thing, and I'd love to ask how you guys feel about this, because as you can imagine, we've been trying to figure out how do we catalog everything in an elementary classroom. And that's a lot.
Yeah, especially if people have been there a while and they have their own thing.
We have some who I bet we have 1,000 titles.
Yeah.
So we were talking about, okay, do we have our teachers go through and catalog every single thing they have in their classroom and put that on either their Google Classroom or somewhere on the website? That's gonna take a lot of work. And I mean, we're happy to do that if that's what parents want for that transparency. But then Principal Nicholas over at Parkside said, could we put together kind of these are the books that could be read in your class?
You just make a master list.
A master list so that parents would
can
have
see it.
access to that. Because as you can see, we want parents to know what's being read in the class, but trying to figure that out, and I don't know, you've probably been in elementary classrooms before. You come back in from recess and you need to read a book, like to calm them down. And they might just pull something off their bookshelf, and that's hard for us to, how do we put that in a weekly newsletter or on a master list to say this might be read? And those are typically not books I think that.
I get that scenario, but I'm like, I have my little kids at home, I'm like, you guys need to calm down, let's pull out, whatever. There are so many books that talk about
Right.
great principles.
Right.
I mean, I'm personally very concerned about some of these things that are trying to come through politically, that are the critical race theory, all of this movement for the transgender dialogue for young children, right? All the way to teenagers. There's so much anyway, and intersectionality, where we're getting to this racism stuff. There's some really dangerous ideas that are coming in that are trying to really divide students and pit them against each other. And I don't think it's good for any of our communities. Whatever our religion is, right? Whatever our ideology is. But I feel like there is really a push to bring in new information that really teaches this whole thing. And that's kind of where my biggest concerns are. Not that we can't read books that are very talking about character education. We have tons of them. There are plenty of them that are written. But it's just bringing in these new, and I believe they're politically driven. Other people say there's no political agenda and there's no sexuality in all of this, right? But I really feel like we need to do our best to really bring together as many commonalities as we can in our community, right? That's where I get concerned.
Yeah,
And
do you guys know what critical race theory is?
Mhm.
You do? Can you guys
It's
describe it to me?
it's not our intent to push critical race theory. Now, I recognize that some things are, at the very least, perceived to support critical race theory and to make the majority race feel guilty for being the majority race. That's not our intent. Our intent is only to make sure that we, as a district, treat everyone equally and that everyone should treat each other equally. And
Well, I agree, but equity doesn't mean equality. That's the thing.
No, it doesn't, but still, they need to be fair, we need to be fair and safe for everyone. If that's what you want to use that verbiage instead. And so that's really what this intent is. Now, does that mean that we're going to be perfect somewhere down the line? Somebody brings a book that 90% of us don't think it's critical race theory, but 10% do. That's probably going to happen.
So tell me, based on the board meeting, the study session, we have a book, Anti-Racist Baby for Kindergartners on the equity book bundle list that you said, it was said that somehow the Equity Council had nothing to do with that, which is a load of crap, but and Anti-Racist Baby is now where? Since all these books were characterized as wonderful and developmentally appropriate, they're now where? Where are these books? Where is Anti-Racist Baby?
I'm assuming it's in the library.
If it was in the library before, it's in the library now.
Right, so when you say you understand critical race theory, do you know what anti-racist really means?
Right, it's kind of just an opposite way of saying I'm racist.
No, it's not though. Critical race theory, if you see the word anti-racist, it refers to critical race theory. Every time you see the word anti-racist, it refers to critical race theory. When you read Anti-Racist Baby, it says, you are either racist or anti-racist. There is no neutrality. That's directly from the book for, to be read to my 5-year-old. So that's telling me I can't simply say I'm not racist. I have to say I'm anti-racist. And when I say I'm anti-racist, that means I need to apologize for my white privilege, et cetera, which I'm sure you have heard about. But that's where my issue comes in, because there are a lot of books in that book bundles program, and I would suspect that some people might want to bring in more that speak about anti-racism.
And that's where you get the opportunity to opt out going forward.
For anything critical.
So
race
anything
theory.
critical race is already here.
So if there's a book that you don't want, then And that was something that, obviously we could have done better on the front end of this, no question. But that is what we're trying to build into this process to make it a much more transparent process so that you know if that book is going to be read. And, you cited one, there's probably 10 others out there that people may have issues with. You can choose to opt out of that.
So
Because
if somebody pulls anti-racist baby out of the library, a teacher does, and then they're gonna read it to a class, they first have to go through the process you were talking about.
Correct, that's why we're,
Notify us, and then we can opt out.
yes.
That's correct.
The problem with that is you are putting the onus on, so you're excluding kids, so their classmates might make fun of them. Your parents wouldn't let you read this in class.
Well, and not only that for me, but also, if the rest of the class is being taught, you're either racist or anti-racist, there is no neutrality, and you need to apologize for your racism, my child's gonna hear that ideology through them, they're gonna go to recess and be like, are you racist or anti-racist? I mean, just the realities are, if the rest of the class is being taught that, it's gonna permeate the whole school, and I really feel that those are dangerous ideas. This isn't just for my child, but for our society, for our community. And when you tell me that anti-racist just means you're not racist, you're telling me that you don't really understand critical race theory.
Well, we can sit here and debate that all we want with it, but at the end of the day, I think critical race theory is still evolving. They're still trying to find ways to make that change and grow and develop. We also have to think about the fact that there are a lot of parents who want this material in the classrooms. And if we choose to not have it in the classrooms, we'll be having another conversation with another group on the opposite side, saying we're not providing the material that we feel like our children need. So we're in the middle, we're in a tight spot.
But if you're following the law, they have every right to read whatever book they want to their kids when they come home from school. All you have to say is, we're following the law. That's it.
And I don't know that we are not following the law.
So you think are you getting anything from like the Utah Board of Education that says you need to be bringing this critical race theory in school?
They're not saying, they're not using the words critical race theory at all.
It's just
And nor are we.
Are you using the word anti-racist?
Not that I'm aware of.
Several of these books,
I would say, unless there's certain books that have it there, but that is the situation where those need to be vetted.
stamped racism, anti-racism, and you. Let's see. This book is anti-racist. That's for 5th graders.
Anti-racist baby.
Would it help if we contacted legal counsel for the State Board of Education and asked the question that you're asking of us, just to see where the state stands on this, just to make it perfectly clear on what's being pushed and what's not being pushed by the state and within law? Is that something that would help?
Well, it's not a law yet. I know in some states, they're putting it into their law, or the governors are making whatever about critical race theory, but here in Utah, it's not. But as parents, we are expressing our serious concerns about how those types of teachings will affect our children and our society. And so.
So let's look at the other side, though. We have a lot that are, and I'm not saying
Well, yeah,
critical
we do have a
race
lot
theory,
that are,
but we have as much, I'm fair to say, that are saying, we need more of this teachings in our schools. So what do we say? We're in the middle. How do we make both sides come to something that we can agree on?
That's where we focus on the curriculum, the state curriculum, not what certain special interest groups or people want or what they're pushing. I think that's the bottom line. It's not just critical race theory, it's these other books that are pushing socialism, like Paper Kingdom. It's an agenda, and here's the big concern I have. So we expressed concerns to all of you, and the response was, yeah, let's have a meeting. Instead of having a meeting, we don't have a meeting, and then we have a sales pitch, And the sales pitch is, let's expand equity throughout Murray School District. Not, we want to hear what these parents' concerns are. It's, here's our sales pitch about why we should expand equity. And equity does not mean equality, and we have serious concerns about why the response to our concerns is, let's now expand equity. And that phrase was used multiple times the other night, the expansion of equity in Murray School District. We don't want the expansion of equity when you're talking about what it really means with some of these books and the agenda that is being pushed politically. And it is political. You can they keep trying to say it's not political. It's political. And you might disagree with me, but Black Lives Matter has said themselves on their website that it's a political driven organization. It's a political will movement. So every time you authorize books that are pushing a political agenda, you are breaking the law. The law says that it prescribes against the teaching of political doctrine to children without parental consent. So that's, I guess, my big...
I think you just said parental consent, so I mean, there are a lot of parents that
Who are
consent.
consenting.
That consent.
Right, I get
We're
that.
giving you the option to opt out.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's gonna be the gray area where you're gonna have some kids are gonna say, they've learned this, and others that have learned a different approach because they've chosen to opt out, or they've chosen to opt in. And there's some of that stuff, I don't know that we're gonna be able to change.
Yeah. So the other night, they kept talking about removing barriers. They kept talking about how we just want equity, and they showed all these graphs and charts. There was no graphs and charts to show how this agenda that we're trying to implement into Murray School District is going to solve any of those problems.
And I think we've changed the name from equity to, you can say it.
Opportunity schools, and really, and I'm sorry that it came across that we were trying to do a sales pitch. Really, we were trying to look at the definition of equity by the Utah State Board of Education, which is about providing resources for students in those different areas. And that's what we want to focus equity on. We want to make sure, I even remember, Laura, I hope you're okay that I use you.
You bet.
But, equity in the science fair. We had a lot of kids who didn't have opportunities to that, and you provided so many amazing things. So it's looking and closing those gaps. We have so many students that we want to be able to provide a good education for, and that's why we need the
Well, and I
parents.
love that focus.
Because that's what equity is. It's not about reading a book, and it's not about these other things. It's about what do we do to help all of our students. And I think they use the term zero sum in the meeting, but it's more like all boats float. How do we help all of our kids, no matter where they're from? Because every kid we want to make sure has those opportunities to have a good education. And equity is looking about the equitable distribution of resources, and I don't have it here with me, but those things that we talked about. And we wanted to take that from, because right now equity's been looked at through this reading of a book.
This political.
Right,
Right.
and we want to, I want your kids and your kids and your kids to have what they need to have a good, I've been even thinking, how do we get more, is there other AP classes we can do in the junior high schools? To
That'd be
offer,
awesome.
that, or some of those different things.
Well, and I thought it was interesting because some of the stuff they presented as data, as how we have certain
Gaps.
populations who aren't graduating, who aren't taking AP and concurrent. I'm like, are we talking about the same solutions as some of these equity focuses aren't gonna, there was one comment that Robin Williams had about the Harvard Health saying racism is playing a major part in this. And I'm like, there could be a part of that, but there are also many other things
Oh, yeah.
that play into that doesn't have to do with anything with skin color. Or, do you know what I mean? Like showing up for school, drive like the Hispanic community. I don't know that they care to do AP classes or even know about why it would, do you know what I mean? I personally, when they talked about a special needs person wanting to maybe get in the gifted and talented program, I'm like, I've been frustrated with the gifted and talented program since my kids were in the second grade, because they didn't get in because it's only for this many people, and we can't really support that whole big thing. Well, I'm like, why can't we have more opportunity? And I believe that, but I'm like, are we sure we're not just kicking the door open for people to just say equity is about these political things and not really solving the issues that are making it so kids aren't succeeding? That's kind of where I worry, that we're getting into an emotional dialogue with people who are pushing those agendas instead of really talking about why kids aren't coming to school and maybe why they're depressed, or, do you know what I mean? Like, I really have passions behind that.
Yeah, and I wanted to add to that, after that meeting, I told Greg at least, I don't know if I told you too, but I could have taken AP classes in high school. I didn't want to. You know, I didn't want the extra homework. I knew I was gonna go to the University of Utah. I didn't feel like taking an AP class would help me get in. So I didn't want extra homework, so I didn't do it. If my number on that chart were represented, you could easily say, look at how inequitable this is, she didn't get into that. Well, that's not what it was about. It was about my free choice. And that goes into a lot of, like the one chart where they were like, how many of you enjoy coming to school each day? And it was only 40%. I'm like, how many junior high and high school
How
kids
many
enjoy
kids are
coming to
gonna
school?
answer?
I
And
did.
since 40% answered yes, that we need an expansion of equity.
Yeah, they said
That's just kids.
that's the reason why we need equity, so more kids, like, these are not,
But I do hope, I mean, let me interject. I do hope the opportunity switch really helps keep a grounded focus on students and their success, right? Instead of just, it's another name for this same equity push, right? That
And that's why we've changed it to, we wanna look at opportunities. And April, you didn't want that, and that's okay. There were other things, that you wanted to do it, and that's absolutely fine. We don't wanna push people into it, but if there are things that are barriers for people getting into it, then how do we help with that?
yeah, and so what is it that you're gonna do? Cause I've heard that Riverview already has gotten rid of honors classes.
their honors English and honors math for the year.
Yeah, so is that your version of equity? Like, we'll just take it away because we don't have enough
No.
equity in it?
No, and they did that in relation to some things with FTE this year, which is the full-time equivalent, and
Oh, for teachers.
that was something that the principal has tried out, and I don't know if you were involved in that, Scott, and can speak more to that. I don't know if that was you or Robin.
So my understanding, and I think it was a year ago, this is the first year that they're actually have been doing it, I think, and
It is the
maybe even the
first
second year. but it's-
year.
So what happened is my understanding is based on the number of teachers they had and the number of sections of math they have. If you divide them into honors and regular sections, you might have 12 honors kids and 25 regulars, or 20 or whatever. But if you can combine those, you can make it into one full class. Does that make sense versus not? And so the decision was made, it was pretty tight on FTE, so the decision was made that, and the teachers took upon themselves that what we can do is we can teach the whole group, and we can do things like enrichment activities and other things for those that want to pursue those. Now, I think you can argue both ways. Is that, best practice?
Because I don't think many kids want to push themselves. Yeah, I
Well,
want to do more
I can
homework.
speak because I took off my school board hat and put on my parent hat when that happened, and I was super upset. I was like, that is a position we need to look at in equity, because we have kids that need honors. So that's something that we should look at and say, are we being equitable in offering it at one school and not offering it at the other? The way we're doing, and it's a test run, and maybe it will
We
work
certainly need to
fabulous,
look at it,
and
absolutely.
maybe it won't. We have to try things to make it work, we don't know. I'm thinking, as a parent, I was like, well, that's not right. But then I had to explain, I'm like, well, let's give it a shot, let's see what happens, But that's something that our equity committee could look at and say, sorry, that was the wrong wording.
Opportunity.
Our new committee can look and say, are we providing opportunities for everybody at school?
Okay, so I have a couple of comments, and then I'll try to be more quiet. At the equity agenda, if you watch, have any of you watched the Evergreen State YouTube videos about equity? What happened at that college in Washington and how it tore a campus apart. And they were protesting and inciting violence against liberal professors who wouldn't go along with this extreme agenda. I don't know if have any of you seen it. If you haven't seen it, you should go home and watch it. It's not that long. If equity, as we define it in Murray School District, actually has to do with equal opportunities for everyone, that's great.
We're all for
But
it.
if we're just calling it opportunity and we're attacking equity from the way the leaders of the equity movement all across this country are doing it, that is Evergreen State. That's not what you are depicting to us. And it also, I don't believe, is what Dr. Joe Cerise had in mind. So that's why I'm skeptical, because I read the Equity Council meeting minutes, and they talk about how intersectionality needs to be our focus. Cara Cerise talks about how all these books in this book bundle list need to be at all the schools and not optional but mandatory. And then someone, and they never say who in the minutes it is, at some point expressed some objections to the agenda they're trying to push, and then we learned that Darren Dean is going to talk to that person to follow the group norms. So is this equity that where is this headed in Murray School District? Are we going to be requiring conformity to an agenda, or is it going to be truly accepting of different views, parental input? I guess I'm just skeptical.
Yeah, and another thing from their meeting minutes all over the place was the devil has enough advocates, which is, code for no devil's advocates. Don't question what we're doing here. We don't need that. And then in the end of their meeting minutes, which was after I had said, yeah, I want to be on this equity council, they were like, what do we do if parents get hostile? So, I mean, and they even said something like, who do we call for backup or something like that? Like, so this is not real, to me it doesn't sound like we want to be equitable, we want to talk about everybody's viewpoints, we want to consider everybody's opinions. It's more like, you agree with us, otherwise you are hostile, and you are a devil's advocate, we don't need any more of those. To me that's not sounding like open opportunity, equity, equality. That sounds like, these are our ideas, this is where we're going to go.
And you need to agree with it.
We want you to agree, otherwise you're going to get talked to by Darren Dean or whoever now,
So you're referring to the minutes and the mission, vision, whatever, of the former
Yeah.
equity council?
Right, the original equity council, and like some of their trainings, like the one that they did at Horizon for October about sexuality and gender. Yes, these are the things that we are referring to, that we feel this is what equity is really about, and
What
critical race theory.
they're trying to create in our district. But
Yeah,
what you
they
said
bring it in
is
through.
a whole different
And
side.
which is why that equity council has been dissolved.
Okay, but Darren
What is
Dean.
their role in this new?
Yeah.
There is no.
There is no role.
There may be individuals that are formally on that council that may participate at some different level, but I don't know if that's.
So I guess one of my questions on that is how, they said, for some of these councils, one teacher and one parent from each school, you could still get kind of certain leanings with one parent, one teacher, right? And hopefully you would have enough balance with the different schools. But I'm like, how do you make sure that you've got good representation, that you're,
Yeah, I don't really
Just guess.
know if one parent per school is good enough, One parent to represent 500 families, that'd be really hard.
I mean,
Well, aren't they selected by the
By the
community
community
council?
council.
But still, you know?
But the community councils are pretty diverse.
Well,
I
and
mean-
you have the right as parents to vote on those community councils.
And then that parent representative can go back to the community council and talk to the community council and represent those. And I understand, but we, you know, if you have 10 parents, 10 teachers, and then you've got the 2 administrators and 2 social workers or counselors, I mean, you're already up to 24 people. And then you've also got, if you saw it, there's 2 directors over each of those. So that's, when you get so big, it becomes really hard. So that's why we're gonna rely on those parent representatives to be the liaison, to go back to the community council, to talk to that, to be representative of their community.
And I think the other thing that we need to keep in mind is we're totally open that this is just one way to try, attempt to make sure that we have opportunity for all. And if it's not working, our commitment is to review this, let it run for a year, you know, whatever, several months, a year, whatever is deemed. But then let's take a look at it and see if it's really doing what the intention is. And the intention, again, and I understand the skepticism, and you have every right to feel or think the way that you think. What I hope they understand is really this is an opportunity for us to try to make sure that every student, just like we talked about, feels safe and welcome in Murray School District. And we have an opportunity to commit to that and to work as an organization to come together as parents and teachers to try to make that happen, if that makes sense.
Let me ask one
Yeah,
more question.
sure.
At Riverview Junior High, there are BLM signs all over the place. When my kids see on television or on the news cities burning and police cars toppled, and BLM is involved in all of these protests, and you have politicians who won't criticize any of those protests, how are my kids supposed to walk down the halls of Riverview Junior High and see teachers with BLM signs and feel safe?
Yeah, that's a great question, and
That's a challenging one. We're still in the middle of addressing, and to the best of my understanding of where we are on this, Jen, you can clear that we have actually gone again to, was it, we talked to all 3 different ones, or is it just the Attorney General's office on?
It was the Attorney General, and then it was David Byrd, so.
On this, and the political speech versus, some are deeming this as civil rights, human rights.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've heard a lot in all.
And so,
That some are like, no,
we're on a
this
very
is a civil
narrow
rights
rope
issue.
right now, trying
Another
to figure
sense
out
of
how do we
political
address this? Because it is perceived by a lot of people to be human rights, therefore it is not political speech. I don't disagree that the people have potentially to make things not political become political or appear political. And so, I don't know that we've finished our resolution on that, but we're
Okay,
trying to
that's
be very
fair.
cautious about it, because we make a
Because
decision too hastily, we can be all over.
It's serious ground.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone understands that the political speech versus the human rights issue, and those are framed very different. And matter of fact, even legal counsel is saying this is a hard one
And
because it
it's,
hasn't been clearly
and
defined.
it's new, probably getting challenged at this point in the courts, right? Or it's
Most
on its
likely
way.
will be at some point.
So,
It's on its
so
way.
the dilemma, and I think you can see with us, the dilemma is if it's deemed political speech, then you know that that's against the law in schools, right? We can't we can't participate in the political speech piece of the law, or in any of those things. So if it's human rights, we have a responsibility to teach and acknowledge human rights, right? That's a tough one when some people view it as political speech, some view it as human rights.
So
What
if,
yeah, go ahead.
what if somebody wanted to put up like, all lives matter?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Is
Or
that
Blue Lives
political?
Matter.
Is that
or-
political speech or?
Well, why would all lives matter be political? I don't
What
see
about-
any-
what about-
What's political about all
I have
lives
one.
matter?
What about Make America Great Again?
Is that?
I mean, we
Those
can all
are-
get behind that statement, right? We all agree Black Lives Matter. We all want to make America great again. Can we hang up that?
But see, those are
Is
the
that
things that
political,
are
or
like,
is it
you have people who are
Just a good
getting
statement?
fired for that, you're getting people who are.
It depends, I think, on who you talk to. I don't think there's legal
Exactly.
precedent, the legal precedent to that stuff. So, I mean, I don't know that we would force some, I don't know, Jen, you tell me how we would probably, you're the one that's ultimately gonna enforce it, but.
The Make America Great
Yeah,
Again.
or-
Well, and again, that's hard because we know that that was associated with a political candidate and that was their slogan. So we're trying to figure this out, how to navigate this. And I want you to know, it hasn't fallen on deaf ears. I promise you. We are trying, and we're also trying to figure out how do we unite all of our students and make a statement that says you matter or something like that without it being a political, having to figure out if it's
Without being
political
divisive,
or
without.
human
Right,
rights.
right.
Exactly.
And it's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard.
Yeah, and the thing too with like, I haven't looked at all the anti-racist books, but I know Anti-Racist Baby has got that fist all over the place, which we know is representative of Black Lives Matter. So to me, critical race theory is political. It's tied together. And when I'm seeing those in a book for my 5-year-old, I'm like, okay, is that supposed to teach my 5-year-old to follow this political activism? You know, just as BLM says on their own website that they are a political will, and those are things that, you know, really concern me as a parent. That I totally believe you that, you know, this is about opportunity and you see the good things, but I also feel that there is an underlying agenda that's
I think
sneaking through the back door, and people know, there are some people who know what they're doing.
And I never heard once the other night the phrase excellence in education. It was all equity in education. But if we're trying to lift all boats, why shouldn't we demand excellence, which has a positive effect on every child's education, rather than focusing on this equity agenda, which is about lifting up certain groups because they're marginalized?
Yeah, wouldn't excellence lift all groups?
I don't know that that's necessarily a bad point, but I think our conversation was not about the excellence. It was really about, okay, how do we deal with the equity council and what has transpired, and what do we do going forward to kind of make sure we mitigate things that might be perceived as risky, inappropriate, and really realign it back with the true intent of how do we make our schools safe for everybody, and that everyone can feel included in being a part of the school or their classroom. And so really, ultimately, again, that was the focus of that conversation. Excellence is certainly a part of it, but it was not really addressed because we were really just trying to focus on how do we make people feel safe? Because right now there's a lot of that that's not going on. And how do we get, you're not gonna learn if you don't feel safe.
Yeah, I mean, and I would just argue that there are a lot of people who don't feel safe.
One way or the other.
Right,
And just because somebody says they don't feel safe doesn't mean they don't, because sometimes there are people pushing an agenda. So it seems to me like you listened to certain people that didn't feel safe and ignored the rest of us. Because you issued a new memorandum because a few people said it was harmful. And the rest of us feel like that memo harmed our kids.
The third memo. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it just seems interesting to me that you listen to the people who are the loudest.
Yeah, I mean, if it's really about all people feeling safe, all people need to be the focus, not just the marginalized who say, we don't feel safe. I mean, I want them to feel safe too, but I want my children to feel safe too. I want to feel safe too as a parent. I want the teachers who don't agree with these things to feel safe too. And I know there are a lot of teachers who feel like they cannot speak up about these things and they do not agree. And I listened in the board meetings and in the meeting minutes where they said, well, we've just only gotten good feedback. All the administrators are on board with this. Well, that's not what I'm hearing in reality, but I do also read in their notes that when someone doesn't agree with them, they say you're out. So, you know,
So,
it's,
April, I don't mean to just cut you off, but I think we've all agreed that how that went down and all that information,
We didn't go well.
yeah, we're moving past that. Our focus is not on that going forward. Our focus is on everything we've kind of looked at moving forward with the opportunity and doing it in a very different way that we feel like is more inclusive of everyone. Now, there's gonna be times when a marginalized group, we need to put more emphasis on them, because that's the only way we're gonna remove those barriers.
Sure.
But our intent is not to reverse marginalize another group in that process. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but
It's good.
it's a challenge, absolutely. And there may be times when we think we've got everything lined up right and we do it, and guess what? From left field, we hear something that didn't go right. Okay, then that's our opportunity to step back and say, okay, what did we learn? And what are we gonna do differently the next time? Because I don't think we're gonna be perfect at this, because it's too much of a hotbed of
It's a moving train.
one side or another side, and really where does that all land?
And I don't think this is an issue that's just facing Murray City School
No.
District.
No,
It's
no,
facing
for
our,
sure.
our
Everywhere.
community and everything.
I
So-
think Murray City School District is actually probably the example going forward. Like, I think coming in here, seeing how you respond will actually give a ripple effect of like, how do we really deal with this as a district?
So, and Laurel, I love that, and so what I would like to extend is how can we work together, because we have a chance now. We have an opportunity right now, and it's hard, but we have an opportunity to make this right for our kids, and I don't mean by righting or wrong, I mean by extending them opportunity. And so the direction that we'd like to go is, and you guys have mentioned, maybe this council was too small, maybe it didn't focus on the right things. So we have the opportunity to find right now what we want to do for students moving forward. And so my question to anyone in the room is, we've proposed an opportunity,
Murray Advisory,
Murray Opportunity Schools Advisory Council. And we've talked about 10 representatives as parents and 10 teachers and this makeup, and it may or may not be the right thing. But is it something that, as you as parents, as we're talking, is it something that we can at least start with? Is it something that you feel that we can look at and hopefully rely on to provide information to make sure that every student feels safe and welcomed in Murray schools? Is that something that we can at least say, yeah, let's try this.
Let's do it.
Let's give it a shot. Other districts are going to face this at various levels like we've talked about. Some may be ahead of us. Most are probably behind us at this point in these conversations, is my guess. And so my thought is, okay, what can we do? We control this now at this point. What can we do together to make sure that, more importantly than anything, that everyone's kids
Get an
are
education.
safe in school and feel welcomed at school, and then we work towards that excellence piece for all students, that all students work towards that excellence, that we meet them wherever they're at, and then we try to lift the boat. And I think you guys get all that. And so is this something that we can say, you know, we've learned a lot from the things that were tried, and we recognize that there were some things that didn't work, and we recognize that. We recognize that some feel jilted on this, that some feel like I have some skepticism going in. And just say, okay, we understand that. Can we just set that aside? We'll be cautious, we'll all be cautious, but let's make sure that we say, let's give this a chance, let's work together. Let's voice as a parent to those members that are selected for that council. Let's make sure that we have a voice through that process, and let's see if we can actually accomplish opportunity for our students, opportunity for all students. Is that something that you guys
But I guess
feel
going
would
forward,
be
what support does that require Like, when will things, like, when will the council be formed? Is it this year? Like,
Yeah, we've talked about that, and we'd like to have it, a meeting this spring, so absolutely.
Before school ends, we'd like to have this in place, have policy in place so we can put this council in place and have at least one meeting before we break from summer.
for next year?
Yeah, and at least start, the establishment and what.
So,
this-
can I ask a question? What was the
Sure.
point of having 4 of them? I didn't quite follow that.
Oh, the subcommittees, so as we looked, if you look at the definition of equity by the State Board of Education, and it talks about kind of the different areas, equitable resources of, and so that's why as we looked at that information, we felt that it really did, so equitable resources include funding programs, policies, initiatives, and supports that target each student's background and have access to a high-quality education. So as we looked at that, we tried to categorize that into kind of the 4 different areas that we felt. So there's policy, there's professional learning for teachers, because you had mentioned that. There's curriculum and instruction, and then there's student-centered support, which is like our safe and healthy schools. And so as we, as the district leadership team looked at that, we tried to take that definition and put it into kind of
How it plays out.
areas that we could really focus in on.
And then what does each subcommittee actually do? I mean, they're just providing input and guidance to the Board of Education?
And who's the district leadership team?
So that is all of the directors, so that's myself, Mr. Bushnell, it's Director Hamilton over elementary, it's
Robin?
Director,
Robin.
Williams
Over
over secondary, it's
Kelly.
Director Kircher over at-risk programs, it's Darren Dean over HR and student support, and I can send these to you if that's easier. And it is David Roberts, who's over our facilities. It's our business administrator, Richard Reese, because for financial considerations, and then we have 2 coordinators. We have our technology coordinator, Jason Ayer, and we have Carol Anderson, who is our director or our coordinator over prevention programs.
What was the last one? Jason Aaron, who?
Carol Anderson.
So maybe I can answer, or attempt to talk, and we're in the infancy of this and trying to figure this out as we go, but for example, under the policy piece, one of the things that we could do is maybe look at policy and make sure that we have an omitted policy or have policies that don't direct things in the way that they might be what's best for students, what allows every student to be safe, be welcomed, and be able to excel in their education. So an example, our IN 304 probably wasn't a solid enough policy, and we had to review that to make sure that we try to prevent these kinds of things from a book just coming in and just being read. And so we had to look at what state code was, and that policy, I think, originated back in 1972 originally, and had been updated once in 2012, but probably needed a major update. So one of the things that the committee could do is look and say, okay, what policy is allowing for resources, that allows for resources for our students in areas A, B, and C? Do we have those policies? Oh, it looks like we don't have a policy on that. Let's see what other districts are doing. Let's see what we know around the nation. Let's come back and talk about, maybe we'd like to propose and advise to the board that maybe we're missing a policy here, and this would be something to consider if we want to make sure that students have a great opportunity in science, or this, or whatever it happens to be. Does that kind of make sense? And as we looked at all of the areas that equity statement covers, there's a lot of places simply in professional development for teachers that we could maybe shore up and make better professional development for them, or in, like I said, in the policy or in the student support area in one of those categories. And how can we really look at that and study that and say, hey, maybe there's some things in there. What if a student is struggling with a gender issue? What?
Are we giving them resources that are really helpful?
What are those resources that we help them with, you know, and what are the things? And that's a broad group that can talk about that and say, you know what, I think there's some things that are offered, you know, maybe state resources or other resources that we need to look at and see. And with that broad group, we're counting on that broad group bringing all perspectives together and saying, hey, we are going to try to mold this into something that we all kind of say, yeah, this, we agree, no matter what our background is or anything else, we agree that
This
this
is
could...
making a safe place for those kids.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I worry, because I've learned a lot about all the transgender, like, things that can go on, like, giving students, or, you know, kids under 18 high hormone therapies, and without their parents knowing, and like health-wise, mental-wise, that is dangerous stuff, right? That kind of stuff shouldn't be the policy. Parents should know. All of that kind of stuff. That's where some of the worry when you get into those gender issues, where you're like, are you really having gender issues, or are you having, you know what I mean? And if you are, here's some really great people who know how to talk
And
to
that's
you
where
about
our counselors and our social workers need to be involved with parents. But as far as hormones or anything, that is, we do not promote that. That is not within our scope.
Yeah.
But if a student runs into this and they all of a sudden, you know, they have a friend talk to them about it or
They
something,
do.
we want to make sure that they have credible information to go to
Exactly.
so that we connect them with the right people that they can
That's
make.
exactly where I
those
worry, because there
decisions,
is
right?
some reality to that gender dysphoria, but I feel like in our current thing, the amount of it is up like 4,000% or something. That's not like scientifically based on gender dysphoria, right? So you get into all of these other things that maybe you do have body image issues, or where before you have anorexia or bulimia kind of things. Now it's put into the gender. You know what I mean? They're just some things where you're like, are we talking about really helping students? And I feel like that's really important.
Well, and I think you hit on a key thing is the parents have to be involved. That's the key that we're,
Yeah,
it's
and
a partnership.
Yeah, and I just was looking at some of my notes from the Pride conference, which, so you said, you know, we're moving forward, we're moving away from this equity council. But it's kind of hard for me to separate from that because that's how this all started. And when they presented in the Pride Center conference, I watched, you know, a lot of the other ones. One of my friend's an educator and she signed up for the conference and I watched them with her. And the opening speech was about code. They talked about code switching, and they showed a registration form where it said, what are your preferred pronouns? What is your preferred name? Should we say this in front of your parents or caregivers? Yes, no. Should we say the pronouns in front of your caregivers? Yes, no. Code switching is another word for deception between students and parents. And it was teaching the educators in Utah, because this was a conference for Utah educators, you know, that this is an acceptable thing to do when it comes to transgender type of issues or whatever. And that's really concerning to me as a parent. That really, and then knowing that Murray's presenting in that council and knowing that Amanda Darrow was the one who did that presentation, and I've seen her presenting in the board meetings here in Murray. So putting those connections together, knowing that Amanda Darrow, or whatever her name is presenting those types of ideas to Utah educators, and then knowing that Amanda Darrow has presented in Murray School District, and we're moving forward with equity in Murray School District in connection with this equity council who's connected to Amanda Darrow. Clearly, I'm going to make those connections and say, okay, are you guys going to be advocating for deception between me and my child? And on top of that, Kyle Myers presented, she also talked about intergenerational disruption in one of her slides. You know, this is how we teach about these things, and we can do intergenerational disruption, another word for get in there between the parents and the children. Disrupt those values if they're there. And this was the keynote speaker for that same address where they presented, and these are the same, the same group that's presenting to our Murray School District. That's very concerning to me, and it makes me feel like I said in my letter, these administrators don't wanna work with me. They see me as an obstacle to get past so they can get to my children. That's how it makes me feel, and that's definitely how Call Me Max being read made me feel. And their response to it made me feel that way. And so I think if you're understanding where I'm coming from with what I'm saying right here, you can maybe understand why I am so skeptical and so concerned, and it's just a scary thing. My kids are really little. My oldest son is 9, my youngest is 8 months old. This is really concerning to me when I see that there are educators in my school system who say, we're for intergenerational disruption, we're for code switching, And then they literally deceived me in emails and on phone calls. I can't help but make those connections and feel like, okay, what's happening going forward in this school district?
And here's another issue. So I'm all for the opportunity, can't remember the long name.
Yeah, I can't either.
We need to fix that.
But there's a serious trust issue, and you have 4 subcommittees, each led by Missy Hamilton and Darren Dean. Darren Dean either lied or has intentionally misled us and everyone else. At the Pride Center presentation of the Equity Council made, Darren Dean was there, and they said that the district approved the book bundle. You guys said, no, we didn't. They also said there was no pushback from parents after parents had been pushing back.
After it was already paused.
Now he's the one that's in charge of 2 of these committees, and Missy Hamilton, who thought it was just fine to read a transgender book to a 3rd grader. We just should have been more upfront about what we did, and it had a really positive effect on the student, is in charge of the other subcommittees. So that makes, if we're trying to build trust, I'm not really sure how that's.
So we did put 2 people on that. Did you recognize that? So it's not just 1. So for example, on policy, it's Darren Dean and Scott Bush now. So there's not just 1 district director on there.
For each subcommittee?
For each
Okay.
subcommittee. On professional learning, it's what Robin Williams and Missy Hamilton, because.
And they both are in agreement on these things though. That's not a variance of opinions and ideas, so.
But
I think if we're gonna have directors on these programs, they should be people who represent a variance of views,
Because that's just where
You think-
we don't
you
know
think
how this
Robin-
builds trust if these are.
I don't know.
I don't know where
I don't
she
know,
stands.
sorry.
And the other thing that has been more clarified is that this is an advisory committee to the Board of Education, which.
So would it feel better if we had a co-facilitator that was a parent as well? We're
I don't
pretty
know.
limited in Murray,
Yeah, that's true.
we only have so many people. I wish if we were a grant, we could pull from lots of benches, but we only have so many people to be able to, and we wanted to take it out of how it had been, and making sure there were 2 district directors who are accountable to a Board of Education, to make sure that there are checks and balances
Yeah,
there.
that's where
And again, and it's gonna be, we will do them open and public with Zoom so parents can see, so. And we will put all of that information, like what they're working on the website, so it's very transparent that way. And I'm sorry, I think I cut you off.
No, I keep-
apologize.
I'm like agreeing, because I go on, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Let me just add, in part to your question, historically, for any representative Murray School District, if they were invited to present somewhere, they just wouldn't present. And it wasn't really at the discretion of the board to review or the district or superintendent. I think going forward, there's a change to that process. That process is those slides need to be vetted by the district superintendent or assistant superintendent, or there'll be some other margin of review before they go.
Because they're representing.
Because
Right.
they represent.
If they go on their own time and in their own accord, we don't necessarily have control of it. If it's gonna be represented by the Murray School District, you using our material, then it needs to be vetted before they can just do that going forward. I don't know if that's gonna be a perfect checks and balances, but I think that's right now the best that we can.
That's what you're
can
trying
do.
to accomplish.
Yeah.
Well, we're all for that kind of idea. We just don't want the other side to be undermining parents and to be not really protecting children.
Well, one of the things, in my opinion, that I think is great about this is that it is going to be parents and educators moving forward with the Opportunity Council. And I think that's an area that is needed. It's something that is important. And maybe, in all fairness and oversight on our part, to be waiting this long to invite parents to something that is so important as this, if that makes sense.
But I don't know how this could be. I felt for a long time that more parents just generally need to be involved. Like, I feel like there are a lot of parents who are happy to like dissociate. You know what I mean? But I feel like that responsibility is a piece that would be really helpful for many things going forward in many of our schools. But that's obviously for me.
Well,
I
But
tell
I
you
don't
what,
know how we can
We want
encourage
more
them.
people involved in community council, and we want more people involved in PTA, even dads. So they did,
Well, and I think like at Grant, they recognized they were holding PTAs at 2:00 in the afternoon, which that's not
Nobody
equitable
can
for
come, yeah.
everybody, you
yeah, they
know?
needed to get,
So they moved their PTA to 7:00, which makes more sense.
A
More
PM.
people, yeah. So it's not just the two people that can meet there at 2:00, and I thought, that's a great idea. Hopefully more people can come in. And those are things that maybe this committee can come up with and say, hey, you're excluding a whole group that's working parents, you know, that could come. So things like that
I
are.
just don't know if there's a way to like, I know that there are a lot of Hispanic families who don't have that as a priority or even have, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, how do
I
we
work with
engage
them.
those families? How
How do you engage that? How, I know with my experience at Parkside and with, you know, the high school, there's so many more, I'm like, there are so many children, we need that, I don't know, I call it a groundswell. Like, more people who are a little more committed, even a couple hours a month.
Well, and I think that if you look at any study, anytime the parent is involved in education, the child succeeds.
Higher success rate.
Yeah.
They're higher success.
And
So,
dads,
Yeah,
You
and
look at all the
if we
dad
can get
data.
any parent involved in our children's education, it's just not a bad thing.
And we do have a good opportunity because, I mean, we're a city school district, you know, we're not covering multiple cities. I mean, we're Murray City, and so I'm hopeful that if any city can do that, kind of like you're just saying, how do we rally together as the city to help our students?
Well, and this is probably, I mean, are we like 185 communications from parents regarding,
Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
that's not a bad thing. I mean, that's 185 people that we want to pull together and say, let's come up with some
you've had
solutions.
185 individual people
I don't know if it's
It
individual.
was, yeah, there were some that were,
Maybe
together,
duplicates and stuff like
Repeats or
that.
Are
something.
you
So-
talking about letters to the?
yeah, of the ones that we solicited prior to the study session, so.
So different kind of communication. And that to me is not necessarily bad. It's great.
That's the most communication we've got on any issue we've had before.
when I said that, I'm like,
So-
I go to board meetings when I'm knowing I have to present and there's an issue.
Which, and even when we can meet together in person again, we're always gonna do the Zoom option. We actually might need to change it to something different in Zoom, because we need to do closed captioning to make sure that we're looking at, is it a Facebook Live or something like that, but we will always have those recorded. So
And that's a great feature. This may be one of the positive COVID
it was a positive
things that happens to make it so we have a little bit more of that.
To be honest, I think that's part of why we're here as well, is that there's, the district has had twice as much on their plate, excluding oversight of equity council, not that it's certainly,
Oh, totally. And
Excuse.
that's one thing we were worried about.
it's just.
That this
there's
came
been-
under the rug during
It's been-
COVID, that is like perfect timing just to like, everyone's super busy with everything else.
So, it's been an incredibly challenging year. I think our district office staff have demonstrated fantastic leadership through that whole process.
Totally.
Are we
And the
perfect?
technology.
A little perfect. I mean, we still,
All the technology, like cool stuff.
yeah, I mean, we're still having 40% or more of our kids that are just doing online stuff failing, and that's not great by any means. And we've got opportunity to figure out how to do that better, but if we can. But there's been a lot of energy focused on just how do we get through this school year. Again, that doesn't make it right that what happened may or may not have happened with that council, but there's just a lot of factors this year that have weighed heavily on the district. It's been more than an unusual year, to say the least.
But in fairness, we can't accept that or
Correct.
use COVID as an excuse, right?
I agree.
That's not acceptable for us as district leaders to say, oh, because of COVID, we were busy. That can't happen.
But
Right now, we have to, despite what is going on, we have to rise and look at this opportunity, council, and look at ways, hey, if we're not doing it right, then let's try to figure this out and see if we can do it right for our kids. So while we appreciate all of that, we've got a lot of work to do, and we feel that we're up to the task with your help, with all of our community's help, to try to make this happen. Sorry, Laura.
I just keep bringing.
Yeah, and regarding COVID during this too, I know for myself, there's been a few times where, because I have a child in 3rd grade in kindergarten afternoon, and so once or twice we've been late during the afternoon, and so I'll have to walk her in, and I've asked, can I go look at my son in his classroom? And every time they're like, no, you can't. I don't have COVID, I've got a mask, but I'm not allowed to go back there and just look in. And then I find out they're reading this book to my child. So, going hand in hand with COVID, it definitely feels like, oh, there's a way to sneak it right in. And I've also heard that my teacher has a pride flag in her room, which I wonder, would she have that? Is that okay? I know this is one of those hot topic things, but I can't go in there and see for myself. Are there Black Lives Matter signs in my children's classrooms? I don't know, because I'm not allowed to go back there. So personally, I feel like that's something that needs to be looked at too, that parents need to be allowed to come in the building and, I don't have the
I
answers
think
for that.
generally, nobody's really, it's reduced population.
COVID is definitely,
And
causing
as a
restrictions
parent,
or
if I
something.
took off my board hat, I would hate that. I would absolutely, that would have been so difficult for me to not be in my children's class.
Right, yeah, I'm like that as a parent. I like to go
And
and be involved, and I'm not allowed
hopefully
to.
that's something
I volunteered
that
in every single one of my kids'
Yeah.
elementary school classes.
is COVID
And
related.
secondary.
Yeah.
I mean,
Not
our
their
choices
classes,
were
but in
Not
their
with the
school.
school.
do that.
But
and
every
keep kids
class
in
that my
school,
kids
or
in
not keep kids in
elementary.
school. So that's a hard thing, and hopefully that's a short term. I mean, I don't know, if we're Texas,
We
if we're
foresee
Texas,
all
we
of
can
the
do whatever
adults
we
who want a
want,
vaccine
right?
will be able to get it prior to school starting again next year, so. And then that will allow us to have much more access, because we want you in our schools. That's important. I mean, that's the one thing I regret most about being a parent is, because I wasn't in my children's classrooms, unfortunately, and that's important.
So I had a question about, when you said you went to the state board, you went to whatever 3 sources about calming Max and the memo and all that.
3 lawyers, right? 3, is that what you mean? 3 different lawyers.
3, yeah. So did you go with the story of the student brought the book in?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. I guess, I don't know if we've said this yet, but we definitely don't believe that story. A lot of parents don't believe that story. And unless that's fixed, there's gonna continue to be an issue.
I have a question to clarify as well. One of the emails you said, I couldn't tell whether you said there was no investigation or we're not investigating. Was there an investigation?
Into the book coming in? Oh, yes, absolutely.
And what did that entail?
That we did look into that. So we went in and we talked with Vice Principal Joe as well as with Principal Anderson. They did their internal investigation and then we worked through that.
Okay, so you you let Principal Anderson and Vanessa Joe manage that and you believed what they told you?
Principal Anderson, yes.
Okay.
So-
Good to know.
And this is just for my personal, so if it were different, and I don't know, I am believing exactly what was told to us by, we have to stand by administrators. What would
Why do
be
you have to
different?
stand by them when we have proof that they're lying to us?
And you represent parents.
I guess I would say, I don't know that we have the proof. If you have something that says something
You have
different,
the emails.
what's that?
You have the emails.
Well, Jen has the email.
Right, I do have the emails, and so, yes, and again, the way that was handled was not correct. They thought they were protecting the student, they were worried about the student. Not correct. We have owned that that is not the way we do it.
Right, but you're still trusting Miss Anderson and Dr. Joe that this story is correct based on their investigation, which clearly they have every reason to say their investigation checks out because it benefits them. And you're just trusting that. When we're telling you we have evidence that that's not accurate, you know, and you're saying you need to stand with an administrator, which is, I understand that because, you know, that's part of your job, but also you were elected by parents, not administrators. So if parents tell you, we don't believe this story, I feel like you can stand with parents on that. And I've told my representative that I do not believe that story. And it's a big deal to me that my representative represent me. Well, I realize she represents a lot of parents, but, you know.
I just don't understand why we believe so easily administrators that have been proven to lie. I mean,
I guess,
You could
Dr.
say,
Dr. Job said that these two books were on the equity book bundle list.
and now she's saying they're not. So she was dishonest in some way or another. But yet we just go ahead and trust her when she says she's investigated it. That's really hard for me to understand.
So what,
And I'm the one who has to take my child to these schools every day, and this teacher. So for that reason, I may be a little more passionate about it than other people, but it directly affects me every single day, and I have a hard time trusting these people after what's happened. So,
so
you know,
I
I'm
guess
gonna continue to question until I,
maybe could I just back it up a little bit and just say, if they weren't telling the truth, what is an appropriate consequence for that as a teacher or administrator going forward? If you say, we didn't, like, you say you're believing them, say we are not, what is a consequence, and what kind of things happen if those things happen again? Or, right, like, just so
Mhm.
they know what,
Sure.
instead of just the, oh, okay, we're just gonna slide this under, right?
And it wasn't just slid under, there were personnel, and again, we can't talk about like personnel actions that we take, and there's a wide variety of things.
So there are things that happen that say,
Absolutely.
okay,
And if it would make you more comfortable, if you'd like me to contact the parent of this child who brought it, I'd be happy to do that. I don't know the child's name, if that, you know, and say, do you know if your child brought this book to school?
That hasn't happened?
No, well, that's the administrators did that, Principal Anderson did that.
but she's
So-
saying she would
She's
do
saying-
that.
But I'm saying
Personally.
I'm happy to contact that person,
Personally.
so.
But the thing is, I guess it's a trust issue because even if that comes back, it's like, well, the teacher, all she had to do is tell this kid to bring the book in. You know, it's like, I don't trust the teacher or the principal or vice principal at this point, so I'm not sure.
So I think you're exactly right, it is a trust issue, right? And so we've admitted, and individuals that have been involved with this have admitted that, hey, let's just take your example. One saying that it's book bundle and that the book was part of the book bundle, and one saying that wasn't. One's wrong, right? I mean, when you have two
right, one
accounts,
way or another, somebody's lying.
something's
Line
going
of
on, right? We believe that we have been told the rationale behind why there were some things that were told that may not have been correct.
But why would you believe that rationale? Because no one was asking for an identity of a student, so why are they trying to protect a student when we haven't even asked who the student was and we don't even care?
Yeah, they could simply have said from the get-go, oh, a student brought this book in. Whoops, we made a mistake. That wasn't
So-
what happened.
So this
And in fact,
excuse
yeah.
doesn't hold
Well,
water.
it's gonna, I think we have clearly understood your point that this is a trust issue. We have to try to figure out what happened here. We've said a superintendent will go ask personally. You've already told us you won't believe it because you don't trust the individuals. I don't know what else we can do to try to help individuals understand. We're willing to go to the house of the individual where this occurred and say, tell us the truth. Tell us what happened. And you're saying, doesn't matter, I don't trust it. I mean, that was what you said.
I would be interested in knowing the answer after she talked, and I would be skeptical about it, but I would be interested in knowing what the response was.
Well, and if you, again, if you're gonna predetermine that you don't trust it, I don't know that it does us anything. If you be open to that and really want to hear the answer, then our superintendent has said, this is what I can do to try to help that issue.
Yeah, I mean,
But I can't help you if you're not willing to help
Yeah,
us
no,
understand. Does that make sense?
I see what you're saying.
And honestly, we just want to try to make sure, we admit things were poorly handled in this area. We're extending ourselves now and saying, can you help us in the broader picture of helping student success through opportunity? And can we work together? Can we hopefully mend the distrust? Can we work through that? Can we give this a shot and work together?
I mean, those are definitely connected. I would say if you want to mend the trust, then tell the district the true story about what happened with Common Max. Tell what happened to teachers. That we were told these were part of the book bundles program, that we were deceived, that the book bundles program was paused because these books were a part of it. Call the Salt Lake Tribune, tell that story. If you really want to mend our trust, if you really want to mend my trust, go to the district, tell the true story. Go to the papers, tell the true story. Come, email us, my classroom on Parent Square, and tell us the true story, because even the message that I got from Principal Anderson was not the true story. She didn't even mention, and let me tell you,
why it's not
When
the
she
true
says
story.
The true story. She's not talking about whether or not the student brought it in. She's talking. I think don't mean to speak for you, but she means she received emails from administrators and teachers that were blatantly false, not poor communication.
yeah, that's the true story.
You're saying they sent emails that the teacher did bring in the book.
They said,
They said
those
we
books
had
were-
every right to read this because of the district memo. These books were part of the equity book bundle list.
they were developmentally appropriate and wonderful for your children. Those are all the things that parents were told. And then, based on what people hear in the paper, you've got Kat Martinez giving interviews and saying,
Well, I
Yeah.
can't control.
I can't control it, but
press.
she's basing it off of what was told to the Salt Lake Tribune by Doug Perry, which you do control. You do control that narrative.
I don't know that we do. I mean, we give so many different quotes or
Well,
interviews, and they choose what to print.
But what is told to the parents in the district?
I don't think I can rectify anything in the media.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I just think that is not something that can be rectified.
I think you're
What
just,
we've acknowledged, go ahead, Laura, I'm
I'm
sorry.
just saying, just going forward, they're trying to say, we're trying to fix it. We're trying to create an opportunity for us to see if we can go forward as a district and create that better trust. And I guess you're gonna have to take it or leave it.
So
But there are parents who we speak with who are concerned and would pull their children if all of this stuff doesn't look like what we're talking about, right? That they think that this is a little bit of subterfuge coming through, right? So we just wanna make sure that we are representing so many kids, and going forward, there is that trust, right? And I think, I see it, that I think that that is the intention going forward, but, I don't know that, you guys might not get piece on your end?
But the issue for me, I won't speak for either of you, but the issue for me is Dr. Joe one of the issues is Dr. Joe gonna be a part of this new council? Because none of us trust her, and she's the one who was spearheading this effort. She was the driver. And is Darren Dean gonna be a part of it, which it sounds like it is, because he's also lied. And so, it makes it hard for me to trust that this council is off in the right direction if either one of those people are part of it.
So the council will have one elementary principal and one secondary principal. That's appointed by me. Dr. Joe is an intern assistant principal,
So she wouldn't be part of
correct,
the council itself.
correct.
And so as an intern, Dr. Joe can lie to parents and continue in the district.
And again, we have done personnel things that we have done with that, so.
If they probably can't tell you.
I guess my question would be, are you wanting someone fired? I know you and I talked, Greg, about, are you looking to get somebody fired because of this? And you said no, and that might be different now.
No, that's not my goal.
Okay,
I mean, I'm not saying that she shouldn't,
right,
but that's not my goal.
okay, and I just, that was a conversation you and I had, so.
And I guess, how do we move to the next step? I mean, whether the book was brought by a student or by a teacher, we're saying, let's move forward with this
Right,
council. But what reconciliation do you want?
I want the true story to be told. I want the district to hear what really happened to parents. So that all the parents in the district understand why this was so concerning. Because I think if every parent experienced what I did, they would be equally concerned. And I know there's a lot of parents who know my story, and they are equally concerned. But the story that was put out by the district, I feel, is intentionally watered down and changed, because you don't want parents feeling what I feel. But that's not honest.
Well, I think we've been honest and said that we've made some mistakes in this. I think we've talked about there have been statements that have been made where you have emails and you forwarded them on to Superintendent Covington that said these are part of the book bundle, is what you said, and others that say no, that they're not part of the book bundle. All we can do is tell you that those were not identified as part of the book bundle as the way the book bundle was organized. So if someone said that they were, that's an issue that we have to resolve, because we have to make sure that our employees are being honest and forthright in the things that they're saying. And that's something that is incumbent upon us to make sure that we give the proper training to help them understand. In other words, it doesn't make it right to say something in good faith thinking that you're somehow going to get someone protected or this or that by telling the lie. We have to be truthful with everyone. And so if in the greater good someone thinks that they're doing the right thing because somehow it promotes a greater good, we have to do some professional development to understand that the greater good is being honest with all of ourselves and with each other, if that makes sense. And so we have some work to do. And we've already said we've had, which as you know, probably all of you know, that internal personnel issues can't be discussed. We simply can't do that. But we have some work to do, and that's what we're saying to you, is that we do acknowledge that there were some mistakes made, and we want to make sure that we don't go through this again, and I know you guys don't want to go through this again. And so what we're trying to extend together is, we've admitted, we recognize. Hopefully you can at least accept that we recognize that. You may say, hey, I still don't have the trust, I still am skeptical, and I get it. And I respect everyone has an opinion towards those things. Irregardless of that, I need to work with everyone that's in this room. I need to work with families. And I'm hoping that you feel that we want to try to work with the district as well. And if we can establish that, I think then at that point, now we say, okay, what does it mean to move forward with this advisory council? What does that mean? Now let's get into the actual, once we get the structure established and get it through policy, then let's actually sit down and put that together, and let's see if we can start addressing the issues that are important to make sure, again, we come back to this, our students are safe and welcomed, and they're achieving excellence.
Well, that trust issue is really.
And let's reestablish the trust issue, yeah. And I think Laura was kind of alluding to, we can do all we want to talk about this in this room, but the proof's gonna be on when the rubber hits the road, right? When this starts to work, we're gonna determine, is this successful and is this gonna help us reestablish the trust? And if it's not, we are committed to relook at that and say, what are we missing so that we can reestablish that trust? But we hope that by creating this opportunity advisory council and including representation from schools and from parents and district and the like, that this will allow us to start talking and having conversations where now I understand when I'm in a room with Laurel, I appreciate being able to sit down with you guys for all of us, because I gain a greater appreciation because I hear this. We can have those same kinds of conversations with people on the committee and people that represent us on the committee to start having these things and we build that trust. I worked with Laurel for a lot of years. We worked together at the high school when you were part of many of the things that we did there. And I trust working with Laurel. I know that she's going to get the things done that she says that she's going to do. I know that. But that didn't come by me saying hi to Laurel one day in the hall.
No.
That came because I saw Laurel showing up at everything that was going on at the high school when I was principal. I was there a lot, and she was there just as much, right? And there were a lot of things going on. And since I've learned that Laurel did that for every school their kid was in, and then some, and then just tonight she said she was in volunteering in every elementary. So those are, I hope, are the kinds of experiences that as we work together, we can reestablish some trust.
Yeah, I agree, and like what you're describing is, you know, I thought that I trusted Principal Anderson until this happened. Like,
Sure.
I saw the equity book bundles come out. They never put a list out or anything.
Okay.
But I saw a picture and I thought, oh, those are probably, you know, teaching some ideas I may not agree with. But I trusted
Sure.
my administrators that they wouldn't be irresponsible, you know, with like really sensitive topics with my children. And now what's happened has damaged my trust. And like you're talking about with Laurel, you've had these experiences and now you know you trust her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the experiences I've had have totally damaged my trust. And so if I want to move forward with trust, I want the truth to be told. I think that's what I'm saying.
Can you give us a chance in moving forward? Can you give us
That's
a chance to
your
reestablish
chance. That's
trust?
the chance I'm giving you.
Well-
Will you tell the district the true story of what happened to me?
I-
Will you?
I think we've recognized, I don't want more to say, that we've recognized that we made some mistakes in this.
No. Will you tell the story that administrators lied to parents? And that's why they were concerned. That the book bundles program was paused because Colleen Max and Juliana Mermaid as the mermaid were part of it. That's what we were told. Will you tell the district that story? Moving forward, will you do that?
And because they said that the district approved it through the memo they issued in November. Those were their explanations.
Yeah, again, I think we've been real clear that those were not books that were in the equity.
But that's what parents were told. So will you tell that story?
So I wonder
Will you
if, like,
explain
you
that?
know how there came out a parent swear that said, we paused this, right, went to the whole district, I think. I don't know if there's anything that could be stated in that kind of format that's like, we wanted to make sure that this idea was told to parents, this is why they were concerned. We have rectified this, and we're going forward with these councils. I don't know if that's gonna happen, I don't know, maybe you have to figure out how.
Yeah, I can't control what you're gonna do. I'm just saying, if you wanna reestablish trust with me, that is what I require. But I can't
Okay.
tell you that you have to do that, but if,
Sure.
you know, I mean, we're gonna move forward with our Parents' Rights Council, and I'm going to continue to tell what happened to me.
Okay.
So if you want to appear, you know, if you wanna tell what happened to me, I think that would appear as more honest towards people on the Parents' Rights Council, because when they hear what happened to me, compared to what they're hearing in the board meetings and what memos or whatever things have been put out, they're very concerned too. I mean, we have nearly 50 parents already on our Parents' Rights Council. So that's a lot of people, and it's growing. So I mean, you guys, like, I can't tell you what to do, and you know, this isn't something personal for me against you or anyone, but this is what I experienced, and it's personal to me in that these are my children, you know, and I was lied to by the teacher of my child and the principal of the school where my child goes. And my children, as I said in my letter, are my most precious individuals. I love them more than anything, and I'm sure you all understand that. So it's very personal to me that I was lied to about something to do with my child and about something that directly affects the values that we believe in as a family. That's a big deal to me. If you want to rectify that, I've told you what I feel needs to be done, but you know, what you choose to do is up to you. I'm going to continue to do what I
fair
feel.
enough. Yeah. So, and I don't want to continue to rehash things, but I guess it's just going to be a trust issue moving forward with this, because we're here and we've been open with what we intend to do, what we like to do, and we'd like to partner with everyone to make sure that we have success in moving forward. Again, I feel like that we've admitted our mistakes, and that's hopefully part of the story when you tell your friends and others that Murray District has admitted that they made mistakes and we're willing to move forward. That's the choice that you're gonna have to make, I guess, in all of this. What I'm hoping that we can do is that we can work together to move forward. I'm inviting everyone to be a part of moving forward from this point on, and looking at how we can make this Opportunity Council succeed. And with the commitment that we will review it and make sure that it's meeting the intended purpose and the intended goal. And we said it over and over, and I'll say it again because it's that important. The kids need to feel safe and welcome, and they need to have the opportunity to try to excel and strive for that excellence that we've talked about. And that's our whole purpose for this is to make that happen in our schools. And so again, I'm hoping that the extended invitation to work together will be received, and I understand that you have the feelings of skepticism, and that's okay as long as you'll give us a chance to try to work through these things. And I hope that you come to us when you feel like something is not going the way maybe that you feel, or anyone else for that matter feels that it was intended to go. So I'm hoping that we'll all be united and committed to making sure that we do what's best for our students in the district. We have an opportunity here, I believe, and I think that we have a framework that we'd like to at least give a try. And
let me ask you a question.
Sure.
And I appreciate all that, and I can tell you're sincere and everything, but what about a scenario like Dr. Joe is doing professional development at Horizon Elementary, having all the teachers read the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist? Does our does this committee that you envision have any control or say in what happens at one school like that?
So, it's a great question, honestly. First of all, it's a great question because we hire people based on resumes, based on schooling, based on what we anticipate are abilities that they'll do well. And there's a level of professional judgment. We do it in the classroom all the time. We do it in with personnel all the time, and there's that level. So, and up to this point, we've trusted that what we're doing in professional development, when we say we have school level professional development, that those are the things that are research-based, grounded in sound practice, all of those kinds of things, right? And so to say that, gosh, what if there's something that maybe someone objects to? Well, believe it or not, as much as you guys want to make sure that critical race theory or these things aren't part of the curriculum, there are others that don't even believe in critical race theory, and then they're just saying, hey, these are good things. And you brought that up. You said that's the other, Laura, you said the others or the other side or whatever, they even mentioned that. And that doesn't make what we have to do is we have to say, you have to run the middle ground in education. Does that make sense? You have to run where things are grounded in R277, 469, or 496, whichever the one is. We have to start grounding and making sure that things are grounded, our practices are grounded in policies. So the state school board, they give us the autonomy, they give us and say, you guys are responsible for your district's professional development. They don't tell us what professional development, but they say that best practices are to be used. Here are some things that we'll give you training in to do. We hope that we can do the same thing at the district level to help our principals understand that these are sound, research-based best practices. I have to be honest that there is a possibility that someone will question something. I think Jaron said that whether it's a book we read or a professional development we do or anything like that, what we want to do is try to minimize that and take that away if at all possible, so that through this opportunity council, it's vetted ahead of time. Things are vetted ahead of time so that we don't run into those problems. Can I promise that we aren't going to run into problems? I think Jaron's been very open about saying we would love it if nothing ever happens. If it does happen, we're going to try to minimize it by preempting it through these things, and then we have to deal with it when it does happen in the appropriate ways. And those are personnel issues that you have to deal with, and you guys are probably familiar with,
Right.
that kind of process. So
I guess I sort of understand, but I guess.
I don't know if I've been real clear.
But my
Yeah.
question is, does this district-wide council have any jurisdiction or say or power or authority when it comes to something that happens at a specific school? Like Horizon Elementary has a justice team composed of, well, at least they did 13 teachers, I believe it was. Or like I said, professional development just for certain teachers or for teachers at a certain school. Does this district-wide council have any jurisdiction?
I'll be honest, that's a great question. I'm not sure we've dug into that level yet. What I can say is right now, current practice is that we have district level professional development, and we also have school level professional development. And we've allowed school level professional development to be done under the direction of the administration, and the district level professional development be done under the leadership team. That's how currently it goes. Now, should we look at it? I think that it's wise for our leadership team to say, hey, this was brought up and this is a question that we need to look at and see how does this intermix or how does this interplay district-wide versus school-wide? I think that's a fair question, and probably an easier, quicker answer as I look at it is currently our practice is what I said, and I think I don't have an answer for you until we dig into it a little bit more on how this might intertwine. Fair question.
Okay.
Thank you for meeting with us.
No, we're more than happy to. I mean, we've got a lot still to work on. I will let you know that Thursday on our meeting, school board meeting, where are we at on the number of?
Parent comments, I think we're around 55 or 56.
So you don't want any more?
Well, so
Just gonna try to read them all, so it could take us a long
And-
time.
Well, you said you had a half-hour window for.
But we're going to read, I think we've decided we're going to read all of them that were submitted, so that could be,
When's the submission date? I was assuming it was Thursday at 5, right?
yes, correct, Thursday
Okay,
at
so
5.
we can still put them in.
Yeah.
we're gonna try to
4:55
suspend
might be
the
better,
rules
so
and
we
go
can
a little
print them
longer.
out, but if you
Kind
read
of
at
what-
5.
yeah.
Suspend the 30-minute rule so that we have opportunity to read more of them,
Okay.
or all of them.
Okay, I'll just say two last things. I
Sure.
would really recommend you watch the Evergreen State YouTube video. It has
Is that in a two-part series by
It's a
chance?
three-part.
Three-part?
three-
I think I've seen part of that. Is that the one with the professor that,
Brett Weinstein?
Weinstein.
I think that's his name, yeah. And I think he married a colleague and they were kind of doing their thing and,
Well, they made him pretty much, like, quit his job
Right.
because he was standing up for
I think I've seen part
just
one,
that
so.
he
What's
wasn't,
the name of it?
he wasn't
I can put it
being a
Evergreen
racist.
State.
But they were telling him because he wasn't admitting he was being a racist, that he wasn't racist.
Okay,
And they did all of this stuff, they, like the students, like almost attacked him one night, like on campus and stuff, because
I think
they
I've
were.
seen a little bit of that video,
It-
so
it-
I'll
But
go watch it.
this is where we're worried that.
Where is this
candidate-
headed?
Okay.
Yeah, where is this going? And, you
Sure.
know, like, maybe we don't have control over that, because clearly this is happening all over the place, but, you know, I mean, as a parent, I have to express my concerns
Sure.
when it comes to my kids, you know, and
And may I mention that I do really appreciate that parents do, thank you for taking time to meet with us, thank you for voicing your opinion. What we have to do is advocate for our kids, and we recognize that. And while we might not all see eye to eye, we want to try to come to consensus to make sure that that every kid, and I keep saying, coming back to feel safe and welcome and can really succeed and extend themselves in their education. And so, unfortunately, and I said this many times as an administrator at the high school, unfortunately, there are so many parents that don't either have the time or the effort or the energy to get involved with their kids. So thank you. I think that speaks volumes for what you think and the importance you put on this and your kids, which are our greatest asset, right? So thank you. I think I cut you off though.
I had 2 points.
Somebody.
The other one,
Oh, yes.
my last one is, I think we do need to strive for some type of common ground. But I think it's hard to do that when we're always looking at people in groups, in categories. When we're looking at them as black and white and gay and transgender or whatever. And so I think as long as we continue to do that, and we don't look at individuals and the individual needs and their individual situations, I don't see how we're ever going to come to that degree of unity that we would hope for. And so I think the more we focus on groups, marginalized groups and categories, the longer this problem is going to be perpetuated. And the more we can look at kids as individuals, the faster we can find common ground. That's probably a philosophical
No, I
difference
think
that I
that's
have
true.
with several people who are involved with the Equity Council and maybe some of you, but that's kind of where I'm at.
yeah, do you guys know what intersectional approach is? Just curious.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Venn diagram where you have different,
Do
you
you
identify with different.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I learned about intersectional approach from the Pride Center thing, and that was a part of the Equity Council too, so it's definitely dividing people up into groups and then assigning them power based on their, whatever different categories they're in, and so, you know, I think that's what Greg's referring to when he's saying, like, it's just dividing us against each other. That's what we're worried about, and like, I think this is whatever, what do you call it now, Murray opportunities?
We gotta get it,
But I mean,
Uh,
but I mean, I'm hopeful that it is what you say it is, and not that it's just another name for equity councils now. And under those equity councils, we're gonna have those secret, to me, which were secret because I didn't know about them, but those agendas of intersectionality, critical race theory, you know, all those types of things that I'm like, these are really dangerous teachings. So,
Which is why we want the parents on there and, you know, educators and
We'll
administrators.
zoom them.
Yeah, and I
we'll
would-
be
And
open.
we'll have them open,
Yeah.
so.
So that's our
That's a
effort,
fair
yeah, because I
ask.
think that is a fair ask, and I think that's why it's so important to include the parents, and it's so important to have the Zoom and the open meeting kind of thing, so that's what we're hoping will be a structure, but we're looking for feedback as we go through this process, obviously, so.
If I can say a positive thing though, is I agree with you. We've never had more categories in the world than we do right now. But our kids don't put each other in those categories. They're accepting across the board. I mean, I don't know at what age that starts to kind of get in that category. So
There are times with my daughter where I'm like, are you really being nice to them? Well, they don't talk to me either. I'm like, okay, try harder.
yeah,
But-
right, like
But
at
I
what
think
age?
that's
But
the
at what
point,
age does
is
that happen? So, I mean.
Well, the
if you
earlier we
look-
teach it, the earlier it's gonna start happening, I think, so.
I mean, generally, if I were to ask my kids when they were in grade school, they're like, it's just John. You know,
Yeah.
they don't know what category that person belongs in.
Yeah.
So our kids are our greatest resource and they're also our greatest teachers.
And I do think generally our community is very accepting of everyone. I think that, but maybe I don't see what little things are happening, right? I'm really grateful to have, I mean, my kids have friends of all colors and, you know, backgrounds, and I feel very blessed about that. So I'm super grateful, but I'm trying to make sure we are really focusing on those opportunities and making sure that we continue that going forward.
I think we all understand that we're all human beings, that we all belong to that one classification of being human beings. And I think there's a lot to be learned, and the later in life that I get, the more I understand, I feel like I'm understanding how important the golden rule is. And if we just treat one another like we want to be treated, there's a lot of power in that, you know? So,
Thank you.
Sorry to keep you so long.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
we appreciate you guys, thank you. We
Yeah,
we
thanks
do
for
appreciate you
talking
coming
to
in,
us.
so thank you.
So just, are you going to ask the parent then?
If that's what you'd like, I'm happy.
Sure, yeah, I would like that. And
Yeah.
then let me know what you, or let us know.
With the council, how would we, if someone wanted to be on it,
How to
we go to the community council and say, I volunteered, will you pick me? And somebody else does too, and then they just choose someone? Or?
The community council's gonna need to vote on it, so, because community councils that's part of their role, is to kind of be a liaison to the district. And so we haven't actually talked to community councils about that yet. We mentioned it to our principals today a little bit, to let your community councils know, right now they're really busy finishing up land trust plans, but that's gonna be coming down, and so we will be talking about that.
But I think that would be
Yeah.
fine for someone to
Yes,
say,
to say,
if I'm not part of the
I'm part
community
of
council, but I would be interested in this council, to just let the community council members that you know, just say, hey, I'd be interested in this and be happy to serve if that would be something that you guys would consider, you know, because it doesn't have to be a school community council person to be on this, they just make the recommendations, yeah.
And I might be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure on the community council training, that's so exciting. But anybody can be in the community council meetings, they're open to all.
Yeah, they're
You
public.
might not be a
Oh, okay.
voting member of that,
But
So
you
we
can
can
attend.
go to them.
but you can be involved in
I
the
didn't know that
discussion and all of that. So
Yeah,
as
that's
parents
true.
want to get involved, that's the best place to start getting involved in your
Yeah.
kids' school.
that's a great point.
Yeah, when I was principal at Hillcrest, we would routinely we had the voted members, but then we would have 5 or 6 other people that would come, and absolutely, so.
That's a
Yeah, I agree. I haven't gone this year
Good
because I'm not on Monday, but I should go.
I've never
But
been
it's
to-
COVID.
I've never been to that.
Yeah, just
Yeah, and
one
you
more
can
thing,
always
right?
find, it's
Yeah,
on,
that's
it's
good.
on every school's website, so they have to have them posted when they are. So every school's website will show where that's at, and it's on, most of the schools, they have it right where it says
Yeah,
community council tab.
It's publicized and all the meeting minutes are on the
Right.
website and everything.
Yeah, that's right.
So, thank you so much.
Thank you all again.
Thank you.
Thanks, yeah. I guess I'll just email you or about that.
Laura, good to see you.
About-
Again, I run into you
About
on occasion here and there, but not as much
if
as
you're gonna meet with
back
that.
in the day.
With the parent,
Yeah.
I'll reach out to you
How
once I
it's so
need
tough.
Okay,
Yes, I can reach out to you,
okay,
so.
Just have my
Thanks.
daughter,
And
she's
she's
a
a-
sophomore.
I don't know if that's
And I
right.
don't know.